Hello and welcome to Head Above the Clouds podcast with me, Alice G.
And me, Jade Poultney. We're here to have open and honest conversations about mental illness and hopefully give some advice about how to keep your head above the clouds. Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of the Head Above the Clouds podcast. Before we jump into this week's interview, I wanted to tell you about a special offer that's happening over on our Instagram. Issue 1 of our magazine is on sale for only a few more days, and as a lovely Christmas treat, our cover stars of the Hunter have signed some prints for some lucky people who order between now and the 14th of December. But you have to be quick as it's only while stocks last. So if you're a Hunter fan or a family member or friend is and you haven't got them a Christmas present yet, this is the perfect opportunity to get a surprise stocking filler from us. And if you're not a Hunter fan, we also have cover stars Tom Grennan, Sports Team and Andro for you to pick from. Now the obligatory plugs out the way, we can get on to what you all came here to listen to, as this week we are joined by international footballer Steven Caulker. Steven started his professional career with Tottenham Hotspur back in 2009 and has since played for Bristol, Swansea, Queen's Park Rangers and my own team Liverpool before moving to the Turkish Super Lig. We got to have a really frank and honest talk about his past issues with addiction and gambling, his desire to help people get out of these incredibly difficult situations, and how mental illness is treated in the world of football. It was an incredibly interesting chat, which you guys can hear right now.
Hi guys, you alright?
Hi, how's the weather in Turkey?
Still good, to be fair. I don't want to make you too jealous, but it's like 20, 25 degrees during the day, so it's nice.
This week we're joined by Steven Caulker. Nice to meet you, and we're so glad you're here all the way from Turkey.
Thank you, it's nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
You're most welcome. We are joined, as per usual, by Alice G, that's me, and
me, Jade Poultney.
And we're going to be talking to Steven about his experiences with mental health. And of course, I'm sure we'll be talking about football at some point. So let's go straight away, dive in. And why not start with your professional career? You started obviously at Tottenham Hotspur, under 18s, which is an incredible team to begin with, you know, a lead Premiership team.
I was quite fortunate, to be fair, to end up there. I had many trials as a youngster. Got rejected by a lot of clubs, actually. I'd been on trial at Chelsea. I've been on trial at QPR. I've been on trial at Southampton. Many Brentford, many clubs. And I was always so nervous when I turned up. I was just so nervous I was unable to perform. And the Tottenham one sort of came out of nowhere. I remember going to the trial. I went straight from school, which was I was in school in West London. It was a long drive to get around there. I think I'd eaten Burger King or something on the way to the trial. I turned up in the wrong boots. I brought studs thinking was out on the pitch. It was actually on the 3G pitch at the time. And I had to borrow the academy manager's boots. So it was, compared to my other trials where I'd gone like a week, like perfect sleeping, eating, drinking correct, all of that. This was very much off the cuff, just turn up and play. And it worked, you know, that actually worked, that sort of freedom. I got signed after, in the first week, I did one training session, one match, I got signed. And I just felt right at home there, really. I really enjoyed it. It was a little awkward, obviously, borrowing the academy manager's boots on the day, but you know, he saw the funny side of it, and we still have a great relationship today.
Do you think then, maybe a different approach, because you were less, I don't know, obviously when you know things are coming up and you plan for them and you want everything to be perfect, do you think that maybe that was kind of why it went so well, because you weren't not necessarily prepared, but do you know what I mean, you weren't necessarily overthinking it?
That's exactly it. Yeah, when I overthink anything, it tends to go wrong, and that was no different as a child. You know, I was scared going on trial, you know, because I always wanted to be a footballer. So it meant so much to be invited to these trials that I'd go there, and I just got so nervous. And it's also difficult, you know. You've got all the boys there in their, you know, Tottenham kit, QPR kit, Southampton kit, wherever it may be, and you're there in just your shorts and a t-shirt, you know, that your mum's the only pair you've got clean from your mum's washing, and you just feel odd. You know what I mean? You feel the odd one out, and you are to some degree the odd one out. You know, they all know each other, and it's hard walking into any academy, I think. What's great is Chris Ramsey, who also was part of signing me at Tottenham. He says, like, when he brings a youngster in a trial, he looks at them for a while because he knows the pressure they're under when they first walk in. You're not going to get a true reflection of actually what they're about. So, yeah, it's important that I think like coaches and the academy spend a bit of time looking at these players before they just make a quick decision.
So when did you go to the trials? To the first team there watching you?
No, so it was in an evening. So the first team would typically train in the morning. It was just, I think it was under 15 I signed, under 15s, just before the under 16s year I signed. So it was fairly late as well. I mean, it was at the stage where my mum had said, look, you know, you have to start thinking about what you're going to do school-wise, because my GCSEs were coming up the following year and I still hadn't got signed anywhere. I'd had many trials, but hadn't been signed. So, yeah, there was quite a lot of pressure, I think, you know, to sort of like, which way am I going to go? I was also in athletics at the time. I loved 800 meters and used to run quite a decent time. So was running for the county and national trials and stuff for that. So it's kind of like, you know, which way am I going to go? Is it the athletics? Is it school? Or is it football? And thankfully, the football, you know, I got that opportunity when I did. And yeah, within a couple of months, we was training with the first team, which was just surreal. I mean, Tottenham were a massive club, but still are a massive club, arguably a bigger club today. And it was all just so exciting to be a part of.
Do you know what, though? I think there must have been like huge amounts of pressure, because obviously being a teenager, as we all know, is not necessarily the funnest part in your life and growing up. And I think when you've got pressure of like school and what you've been told basically that you have to figure out overnight for some exams what you want to do with your life. So the pressure must have been pretty unreal when it came to wanting to do the sport versus all of a sudden being told maybe I'll have to look at other options.
Yeah, definitely. And football was, honestly, when I say I was obsessed with it. I mean, I say openly, it was probably my first ever addiction. You know, I mean, I played football day until night, and it was always what I wanted to do. It was always who I wanted to be. So I put so much into that. It was frightening that I may never realise my dreams. It was frightening, but it was quite the contrary, to be honest with you. It was like I got signed, I said, late on, as 15, just for my 16th birthday, and within 5 years, I was playing for England. Do you know what I mean? It really rocketed, and it was that was quite surreal. Also, do you know what I mean? It was like I kind of never had time to breathe. I've had more time these last few years to actually sit back and go, "Wow, like I did this and I did that." And at the time, you just always think about the next game. So it literally just goes by so quick. Because I'm sure you hear many sort of ex-players, retired players talk about. You really have to like enjoy the moment, but that goes for life in general. The way I try to live my life today is I try to be present and enjoy every moment, you know, because so I'm talking here about when I was 15, I'm now 28. Do you mean the 13 years have just flown by?
What was it like then? I guess, as you said, like you went from being, I mean, you were really young when this first happened, and to be kind of catapulted. I wouldn't know. I'm not a footballer, but I can imagine to be like catapulted into the limelight, especially like playing that young for England and other teams. The pressure of going from day to day to almost like in the limelight must have been huge. Like, obviously, yeah.
It was. I did it step by step. So I really loved the way Tottenham sort of worked with me, if you like. So at the age of 17, they loaned me out to Yeovil, who were in League One at the time. Got a season-long experience there, which was amazing. Learned to play under pressure, learned to play with crowds, learned to play with people who are, you know, fighting for their mortgage payments. You know, they want to win. That win bonus is important. So it felt very real. Do you know what I mean? That was very real. Whereas academy football, you're very much protected. The result doesn't matter. This doesn't matter. As soon as you go into first team football, the results matter. Do you know what I mean? It matters to the fans. It matters to the club. It matters financially, etc., etc. So I had that in League One. Then I went on to Bristol City in the Championship, and then the following year I went to the Premier League with Swansea. So I kind of had a step-by-step introduction. And by my fourth year, I was taken back to Tottenham. So by the time I'd got to that level where people are recognising you in the street and you're getting England call-ups, etc., I sort of had that 3 years through League One, Championship, and Swansea, obviously the other end of the Premier League, where it sort of eased me into it. So I was quite fortunate for that. I look at some players today, and from the age of 16, 17, they just rocket to the top. I mean, that person who springs to mind the most was on my England debut at the age of 20, Raheem Sterling made his debut the same day, and I remember he was 17. Do you know what I mean? And I look at him today, and I mean, my hat goes off to him. Do you know what I mean? He's managed to stay at that level for that long. It's incredible, and he's taken a lot of stick along the way. So I think people obviously underestimate how difficult it is to be an Ashley Cole, Rio Ferdinand, and Raheem Sterling, Wayne Rooney, who stay at the top for that long. I think in any sport, do you know what I mean? I think it's truly, truly an incredible achievement.
I think it's also like really different for us fans, you know, because we just see the kind of polished match. I mean, I enjoy football. I'm technically an Arsenal fan, so don't you know, get at me for that. But when you go watch the match, everything's kind of well put together. It's already slick, so we don't see that whole growing up in it. We don't see that fight, as you say, for your mortgage. We don't think about that. We just see it as a game. I know people are very passionate about it, but I mean, I don't know about Jade because she's also a football fan.
Yeah, I mean, I have some sort of insight because my brother used to play for Everton Academy when he was young, and as much as it disappointed my dad because we are lifelong Liverpool fans in this house, he got scouted about 9 years old, and he was the goalkeeper at Everton's youth team for a bit. And it is sort of weird, like they were like media training 8-year-olds on how to, like, just in case they do make their way up to the main team, like you need to know how to act in interviews, you need to be on your best behavior 24/7. And I think that was more the element that my brother couldn't handle than the actual playing of the sport. He was like, I don't think I want to have my face on like newspaper front covers. I don't really want kids with my name on the back of their shirt. That's so much pressure. And he ended up leaving after like, I think 3-4 years.
Many do. It's. I mean, for me, it's quite sad. I mean, most people I've spoken to, you know, who've been through the academies, who never made it, either didn't want to make it or wasn't quite good enough. Whatever reason, there's multiple reasons why somebody doesn't go from an academy player to a first team player. But a lot of them, like looking back, they just. It's quite. I mean, I personally, it's quite sad. I know many players who, at the age of 18 or at the end of your scholarship at 18 or the end of, you say, a pro contract 19, 20, who are getting told, look, appreciate your time, appreciate what you've done for us for the last 10 years, i.e. your brother, I could have been there from the age of 8, all the media training, all of the academy training and all the journeys your parents are making, because it's a big sacrifice your parents are making. And,
like every Saturday, Sunday, I was sort of left on my own. My mum and dad would take my brother up and down the country to games. And they played at Wembley one weekend, and I had a netball game the same weekend. And they were like, sorry, he's playing at Wembley, you're playing at the school gym. I was like, fair enough.
Priorities, yeah. I understand you. And that's the dilemma, I think, for any parents with multiple children. Do you know what I mean? It's an issue that they face, for sure. The same with my brother. You know, the first thing I did when I had enough money, as in an income, because obviously League One, you're not earning obviously crazy money, but by the time I got to the Premier League, the first thing I did was able to buy my parents and family a house. And that was something I always wanted to do, to sort of like give back, to show my appreciation. I mean, you do it more so with your words and your actions than just by buying a gift. But it was just something that I'd always dreamt of, and it was something that was it was nice when I was able to like accomplish that and be able to do that, because I said that it's not just the one person who makes it. Okay, in some cases it is, but the majority of the time, the coaches are playing a part, your family's playing a part, your friends, the schools, because the school, I mean, my school was great. They let me go out on day release, one day a week. We was going out to the academy and getting experience as a first team player. You know, the school didn't have to let me go. Do you mean they didn't have to let me take that day off to go and experience that? But they did, and they encouraged it, if anything, you know. So that was nice. That was you know, really nice. I just, you know, a lot of people I'm still close with from the youth team days. It can be challenging for a lot of people when you just what you do when you're 18. You know, you put your whole childhood into this football. Your schoolwork has obviously been affected. I think most people don't admit that. I mean, naturally it happened. You're training 3 nights a week, you're missing one day of school. Where do you go from there? And a lot of them, well, in my experience, a lot of my old teammates become in a sticky situation, and you know, it took them a good few years to find themselves.
Do you think, because of that, I mean, if we're being really real about it, and the pressure, obviously you had the media training, which is great. I had a similar thing with my music, but do you think that had a part to play in your mental health struggles? or do you think maybe like the idea of being predisposed? So it's like, for me, I've got bipolar. I was probably more predisposed before the pressures that came, but do you think that had a role to play in where the addiction started coming in?
I would say it definitely fueled it. Excuse me. It definitely played a part in fueling the addictions. I mean, obviously the money for starters, the money that was coming in, I was able to gamble freely. I obviously gambled more than my income was, and that's the life of a gambler. But it constantly sort of just like refueled me to continue with my addictions, and it took many years for me to tackle them. And the reason being is, when you're sort of so successful, so to speak, as a youngster, it's very difficult for your mum and dad to pull you aside and tell you what you should and shouldn't be doing. It's also very difficult for a coach to do that. My ego was up. In a way it has to be. When you're competing, you're in a rat race. You're competing. Not everyone's going to make it from the academy. You figure how many people get rejected from the academy, and then from the academy, how many make it through to the youth team, then from the youth team to the first. It's a very, very slim chance. So it's a rat race. Everyone's competing against each other. So I would say that competitiveness was great when I channeled it, but when I was unable to channel it, it brought many problems. And I think you see that in a lot of guys today. Do you know what I mean? There's an edge towards them, but that edge also helps them on the pitch. You know what I mean? It brings in some great performances. So I think it's just about finding a balance. And, I spoke the other day in an interview and just talk about, education. The coaches are sort of, doing their best for guys who are struggling, but they're doing it from the knowledge that they have. And unfortunately, it's fairly limited unless they've experienced it, bipolar like yourself. I mean, I wouldn't sit here and try to comment on what you should and shouldn't do because I have no experience with bipolar. And that's very similar with the coaches. They're in that sort of situation where how can they talk about the gambling and the drink if they don't know it themselves? So I think education is key. And I think it could definitely be a lot more widespread, worldwide and especially in sport.
I think also, like, even if people intervene, I know when I was younger and I started having the issue with drugs and the addiction, like, as much as people try and intervene and tell you what you should do and shouldn't do, and that it's dangerous and that you're pushing the limit, it's something that even if you promise, I mean, for me, I just went back to again and again and again, like no matter how many promises or how much I kind of wanted to change, it was something that once you're in it, you just, like, it's a repetitive cycle. That's what I found, at least. I don't know if you found that as well.
Definitely. In order to break the cycle, I mean, it took me nearly 10 years. So it took me nearly 10 years. And I'll say for 7 of those years, everyone was telling me, oh, you need to do this, you need to do that, do this. It was impossible. One of the biggest things, talking about the effect that football had on say, my mental health was football, I guess, was my identity for so many years. As a youngster, everyone knew me as a footballer. I mean, that was who it is. I mean, going through a similar situation now with my niece. She's amazing at football. So it's like anytime the family around is like, how are you doing at football? Before you ask, how are you? It's, how's the football going? How's it? And people are genuinely interested, they're excited about it, but it's easy to lose yourself within that. And I think that definitely happened to me, and as it happens to many other people. And, during that sort of like process of losing myself, being told by many coaches, do this and do that and do it, you sort of lose your instinct, on the pitch and off the pitch. And that definitely, was a thing for me. I would say when I eventually dropped to my knees and surrendered around the age of 24, 25, I didn't have a clue who I was. I had no idea who I was. I had the beautiful opportunity to start again from fresh, but also it was sad. I mean, it was sad to be in that state. So yeah, I could definitely relate to people, giving all their suggestions, etc. But until I was ready, it was irrelevant,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it's a tricky one either way. And I think also when you're in your 20s, I mean, me and Jade were speaking about this recently, how we're watching everyone we kind of know either settle down or like be a certain position in their job. I mean, we both work in the music industry, which is a notorious industry for just being difficult in itself. And we're literally watching all these people, whether they're having kids or they're settling down. And I think you hit this point where, like, you've not only are you questioning like your own choices and your own future, but there is a point where you have like an identity crisis. I mean, I think your 20s, well, I know they call it a midlife crisis, but I'm pretty sure like it's a thing having them in your 20s.
Definitely. I mean, I can relate for sure. I can relate. I mean, I guess what I would say is other people don't have it till later if they don't have the consequences. You know, my consequences were huge. They stopped me in my tracks early. I mean, 26 to get sober, and 26 is actually quite young, you know, believe it or not. Thank God there's guys who are younger who get it in the room, but a lot of the guys don't get it till they're 35, 40, mid 40s, you know, a lot later. So definitely say I'm blessed to get it earlier, as are you guys. And but yeah, I again, you know, there's a lot of identification there. We have very similar problems, but you know, we can you know, we can relate on that emotional level, you know, that just having that. I thought for me, it was always that like pressure to change. You know, everyone, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Why can't you just be different? And I ask myself that every night. I really, really wish I could. You know, I didn't put myself through this through choice. You know what I mean? I wouldn't have chose to cause as much pain as I did to those around me and myself through choice. You know, but it took me a while to accept that. You know, there was times I questioned if I was a bad person, and you know, they were dark times. They were challenging times.
There's been I don't want to say trend, but it's definitely something I've noticed lately. A lot of the bigger Premier League clubs are now pushing mental health awareness within the team, and they've set up all these initiatives, and not just within the team, but in the wider community. I know Liverpool do some, Chelsea have been doing some as well. What could they do? Like, what do they need to implement at that level in order to actually help, particularly the young members of this team who, you know, like you said, you're 16, you're coming into it all of a sudden, you've got a shit ton of money, loads of girls probably throwing themselves around you, and you're probably like, this is sick. And then someone coming in and going, actually, you need to like calm down a bit and like even out. What do you think these clubs should be doing?
Again, I think, you know, it boils back to the education of the coaching staff. You know, like the coach or the manager, I should say, you know, has a big role. You know, it's a big responsibility. You know, the name in itself, the manager. You know, your idea is to manage the team, and there's lots of individuals, and you have to bring them together, and it's a difficult job. The club could start by giving managers more time, which in turn would allow them to feel more freedom and to invest more time in individuals. That's definitely something I see today. I mean, managers are getting sacked after 5-6 games. That's no time to come in and have an impact on a 17-year-old coming through. It's impossible. So I'll definitely start with that, and the education. You know, as part of their badges, can they do a form of therapy? Can they do a course on it? I don't know. There's many stuff that could be spoken about. You know, I don't think there's any obvious one answer. I think it's people coming together, you know, brainstorming, using ideas, trial and error, what's working, what's not. But the positive to take from, you know, what you just said is they are starting to look for solutions, you know, and that's a change. That's a positive motion. But I'd say, you know, they're still, you know, quite a long way off that. Yeah, there's still a stigma about it. But is that just in sport? I don't know. I would ask you. I mean, I would say arguably it's outside of sport as well. I wouldn't just say it's football. I think, okay, people are becoming a little bit more accepted. I've just joined social media, and I see on Instagram now there's quite a lot of stuff around mental health. It seems to be more acceptable and, I don't know, trending, if you like. I mean, it's, you know, but I still think the true depth of it is still some way away from being understood.
Honestly, I think that I agree. I think there's a big trend, and I agree. It's amazing. I mean, I first got ill when I was 12, so that was over 10 years ago. And at the time, I mean, it's nothing like compared to the 60s, but at the time there was no conversation about it. There was no support, big stigma. And I think although at the moment it is being talked about more, and that's amazing, I think we're at this like real rut where talking is great, but it's actions that are going to really change this. And I think, I don't know, obviously I'm not in the football industry, but I know with the music industry and the media industry that they each have their own like little areas with it, and their own little kind of ways they're trying to help, or their own ways that they're struggling with it. And I think it's a really difficult thing to manage because it's so personal. Everyone's experience is completely different. And I think when it comes to it, that it's great. I think it's great that the teams are trying, you know, giving it a good go to start. But hopefully, I mean, it's finding the right approach and the right way to deal with it. But I can't even imagine what it's like to be part of a team that is your life, and to have like managers come in and out and different players come in and out. Like, there's no stability, I would imagine, to that.
Yeah, and that's, I knew where that was going, what you were about to say, and I was smiling because the stability. You go to any psychiatrist, any therapist, any recovery group, and a lot of them talk about stability. Oh, you need some stability, and it's like, okay, cool. As a 17-year-old, I moved to Yeovil, which was 2 or 3 hours away from my house. Then the next year, I was about to go to Leeds. Then I went to Bristol. From Bristol, I go to Swansea back to London to Cardiff. The list goes on. Do you know what I mean? I can exhaust you with places I've gone around the globe. I'm now sat in Turkey, and I did a time in Scotland. It's so up and down. The results every week are up and down. You're in and out of the team. You're playing. You're not playing. You mentioned earlier about people just you sort of look at the polished arc of it. The 11 players on the pitch. You're looking at that side of it. You're also forgetting that the guys who are on the bench. The guys who don't even make the bench, who have travelled, who have put all the work in. How is that affecting them? I can tell you firsthand that affects a lot of guys. That feeling of not being good enough. What does that tell you if you're not even on the bench? It's a very hard thing to take. I mean, I personally go and put my arm around a lot of players today who are out of the squad, who are out of the bench, who aren't getting their chance, because I know firsthand how that feels. And that's where I think, the coaches, I mean, they've had it. A lot of them have been ex-players, but they seem to forget it. As whether it's the pressure, whether it's the lack of time, they seem to forget what it's like to be a player, and a player who's very much on the outskirts. So that, again, is a good example there of where just an arm around you, just someone to connect with, communicate with, someone to relate to you, somebody to encourage you. There's a guy here at the moment, he's only 20, amazing player, just hasn't been given his chance. I don't know why. He's probably questioning every day why. But, a few of the senior boys have got a really good bunch of players who will come and say to them, look, keep going, keep working hard, blah, blah, your chance is going to come. I never really had that as a youngster. Do you mean I never really had that? I guess when you're 6'3", everyone always expects you're big, you're strong, you could deal with it. But I couldn't. I was extremely sensitive. On the outside, I looked aggressive and this, but I was just a sensitive young child. Do you know what I mean? And the lack of stability definitely, doesn't help anybody with, with mental health issues. So, yeah, it's a good point.
I'm sure from, as you mentioned, it's really nice to hear you say like recovery groups and stuff like that. I think a lot of people, I mean, I love them. I live for them groups. I really look forward to them. They really help me, because the mentorship, when I'm 25 with bipolar, and I've had 10 years of it. But there's people out there with 40 years on. So to have that mentorship is great. But I'm sure from them groups that stability is the thing. There's a few, for instance, bipolar, there's a few things in a triangle, they call it, to balance out. And to keep the triangle as a shape, you have to have good sleep, good therapy, and medication for most people. And as soon as you break that, the triangle collapses. So I, honest to God, hats to you. I don't know how you can, when you move around that much from team to team, from people to people, how you can find any stability in that, especially at the age of 20. It's madness.
It definitely is challenging, and I'm not the only guy going through it. I said there's millions of young players going through it in other sports as well. What I found worked for me was, I developed a relationship with God of my understanding. That's a big part of the 12-step fellowship, and prayer and meditation, for me really helps center me. So I don't rely on other people to tell me how good or bad I was today or where I'm living. I just, I turn to God. That's what I use. Other people who may not be believing in God, they use a higher power of their choice. The sea, the trees, something that's going to be there forever, and never changes. Something there to fall back on, and that, I think that's a big part of my recovery, without doubt, because there's times where I'm questioning everything and I'm not sure why this is happening and why is that happening. But when I just calm myself down and remind myself, control what I can control, it eases the pressure, because a lot of the things I stress about are outside of my control. I can't actually do anything about them. Just one thing, you mentioned the music industry, and I love music. I love connecting with music, and there's so many amazing artists out there. I never thought I would say I'm a believer, but genuinely his music is unreal. At this moment in time, some of the music he's putting out, I mean, the song Lonely I just connect with it on another level, you know, and I think it's so powerful because a lot of what you see in football is ex-footballers talk about it. They don't talk about when they're current because it very much affects your career. I'm a good example of that. Aaron Lennon's a good example of that. You know, we both had to come to Turkey in order to get opportunities, you know, after speaking out publicly and obviously having our issues publicly. So I think there's still a bit of a stigma back home. So to be courageous enough to come out and do what he does, I think is amazing. Of course, music industry is slightly different to sport, but regardless, I think people like him, J. Cole, NF, you know, to name a few, are just people who are living it. You know, they have to be living it because to speak how they speak a certain language, which, you know, you guys and myself can understand.
How do you... go ahead, Jade, you go.
Sorry. Yeah. I think that, you know, we talk about having these issues. I think it's weird to say it's lucky, but I do think me and Alice have had some luck in the fact that we have chosen to work in a more creative industry where people are a bit more open-minded and a bit more sort of maybe liberal thinking and like engaging in mental health conversations. And growing up in a northern working class town and going to football matches from when I was a kid, it's a very different environment. And that sort of macho bravado atmosphere, even, you know, my dad, he's very chilled out in the house, but as soon as he walks into that stadium, it's like something else overcomes him and you become part of this really like sort of group of people. And I do think you see it in football, not with just mental health, but with LGBTQ issues and race. There is this sort of stigma of like, you are a footballer and you will play football and you will score goals and that's it. We don't want to hear about anything else.
Definitely agree with you. And I had it when doing things like this, you know, I often get the one, how can you be looking for self-pity? Like, you've earned this much money. It's like, that's the complete opposite to what I'm looking for. Do you mean? It's like that. Like, I've wallowed in enough pity, my own pity over the years. Do you mean? I don't want self-pity from anybody else, you know? And part of why we speak about it is to make others feel less alone, because if you've been where, you know, we've been, you know what it feels like to be lonely. You know what it truly feels like. And, you know, that feeling I wouldn't wish on anybody. And which is why I think, like I said, communicating with people, educating people, the more openly we speak about it, the more comfortable it becomes in society. And I think, you know, I think it's definitely heading in the right direction, as I said earlier, but it's still a long way to go. And, you know, I think obviously what you guys are doing is great. Yeah, I just think, you know, the more people who do it, who put themselves out there, the better, you know, because I know many people who suffer in silence and, you know, it's difficult to watch.
I'd love to know, excuse me, how's your son kind of fitted into all of this? And I'm sure that is a huge, I mean, I'm not a parent, but I would imagine it's like a huge drive to want to change things and progress in a different way. For
sure, yeah. I mean, you know, looking back, I didn't like the person who I was at all, you know, and today I'm able to be a better father, a better son, better brother, better friend, better human being. And it's so important for me to be able to be present whilst I'm with my son and not be with him but hungover, or with him but, you know, got a gambling debt in the back of my mind, or a bet I've got to do, you know. So to actually be present with him and engage with him is amazing. And I'm honest and open with him, you know. He's only 9, but I tell him, like, he says, "Oh, you're in Turkey," and I tell him, like, I'm in Turkey, you know, because I did X, Y, and Z. You know, I unfortunately wasn't able to get a grip of it younger, you know, and, you know, things have consequences, actions have consequences, you know, and one thing leads to the other. And, you know, I'm super grateful to be here with this fresh opportunity, but it's difficult. It's difficult being away from my son, of course, you know, like, if I never had these issues and I maintained my career in England at Tottenham when I first started or whatever, you know, my son would be right next to me. So that's a consequence that I have to live with, you know, for however long I'm here for. And of course, we made the best of the situation. He's over here for holidays. We have a great time. And like I said, the most important thing is for me, I can look my son and my parents in the eye and they know I'm trying to be the best I could be. I give them everything I've got. And they know that, and it's genuine and it's pure. So that is what's priceless for me. You know, that I couldn't put a price on it. I couldn't say to you, oh, you know, that's made this whole, you know, journey worthwhile, and continues to make it worthwhile. You know, the journey doesn't end here. I've tried to set on a daily basis. You know, when I'm with him, we'll sit down in the evening and do our prayers. You know, and I want to give him some sort of understanding of gratitude. And it was very easy to give him everything. Oh, I miss him so much. Let me just give him everything. But, you know, I want to kind of teach him some balance in life. And I've got a lot of experience, do you know what I mean? So, yeah, I'm able to share that with him. And, you know, for that, I'm very grateful.
I think do you know what? I think, although you say consequence, and I get that, I've been there where I look at the consequence, I just think, although like you've turned something really on its head, like, and you're given to be able to give him like as a father, like that time where, and that understanding where you understand what it's like to go from the you know, where you don't deal with this stuff to managing it. I think that's a really great thing personally. And I think that's what any parent would want. I mean, I hope in the future that's something that I would give my kids. So it's a nice way to look at it in a weird way.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I was just going to say, it's also nice to be able to actually connect with somebody on how you feeling. Do you know what I mean? Because I don't think I ever got asked that really as a youngster. You know, how are you feeling? Do you know what I mean? Even in today's society, like you don't really, you know, are you okay? Yeah, good, thanks. But if you actually write something, how are you feeling? You know, it connects with them a lot more, you know, like how are you actually feeling? How are you, like, rather than telling him off when he's in trouble at school or something, say, what were you feeling when you did? And, you know, like, it's really interesting to learn and watch him develop as he speaks about his emotions and, you know, learns about himself. You know, that's part of my duty, you know, it's obviously guide him into being the best version of himself. You know, that's what I hope to do.
Sorry, I thought Jade was going to say something.
No, I was just mumbling to myself.
So obviously this year's been, I mean, 2020's been one hell of a year. With if you want to focus on Corona, what would you? I guess we almost ask our guests what they're kind of looking forward to. I guess with Corona putting things into perspective, anything's slightly better, I would imagine. But what are you looking forward to? And hopefully, let's go with 2021, a good start.
Yeah. I don't want to give you a boring answer and say I take it a day at a time, but it's the truth. I do generally try to take it a day at a time. You know, I said with like the whole recovery program and stuff, that's what works best for me. But if I'm thinking outside the box, you know, my contract's up next summer. The club have offered me a new contract at the moment. I've decided not to sign. So I would really like to you know, go back and play at the top level, you know, whether that be Serie A, whether that be Bundesliga, whether that be back home in the Premier League, I don't know. But I would really like to compete in, you know, one of the European top leagues. That's something that excites me, something I look forward to. And international football, you know, they're sort of two things. They're my sort of like two ambitions, if you like, on the pitch. And off the pitch, I want to, you know, obviously continue my sobriety a day at a time. And, you know, help others. I just think that, you know, I've only recently found my voice, I guess, if you like. You know, I spent many years undercover, just working on myself. Do you know what I mean? And just completely like disconnecting from social media and all that kind of stuff. And I guess like over the next year or so, I would like to actually make a difference. I don't know what that looks like today, but you know, I hope that, you know, with my experience, I can share with others and make a difference. So yeah, step by step, I guess that's work in progress.
It's do you know what? It's a really nice outlook. Really, really lovely outlook. And it's not easy. And especially when you're in an industry where it's all fueled about being a man and the kind of toxic masculinity, I can't even imagine that begins with that one and finding your voice. So I think that's a really nice outlook.
When you are a youngster and you get signed to a big club and then they sort of loan you out to smaller ones, does that feel a bit like, oh, I got signed and then, oh, I'm not actually playing with the club I got signed for? Does that sort of affect your mood and your mental health, being like, oh, I wanted to play for this team, but they're sort of loaning me out to a smaller League One, League Two sort of team? Does that affect your health in any way, mental health?
It can. I mean, it didn't affect me. I mean, mine was almost like a positive move. Do you know what I mean? It was only me and a couple of the youth team players who got to take advantage of the loan system. So for me, they were all positive moves. But I could see your point. I think if you're slightly older, I think it's actually more of an issue. As a youngster, you're just excited to go and play league football. Wow, I mean, it's incredible. So, but I think if you're slightly older, that feeling of rejection, you know what I mean, of not being good enough again, you know, the club not what, you know, that could be tricky, I guess. And it's personal to every individual. Some guys go there and think, oh yeah, I'm the big I am, I come from this club, do you know who I am? You know, some guys go like that and they get smashed in the first game and, you know, it's a wake-up call. And other guys go there and, you know, they're very much in awe of first team players. Oh, well, this is my chance. And so it depends very much on the individual. Me personally, I said my loan moves were always positive ones. So that didn't necessarily affect me, but you know, definitely I've been not unsigned by clubs. You know, I've been in situations where, you know, I did a loan spell at Southampton, did a loan spell by Liverpool, and at the time neither of them wanted to continue. So I've had that sort of rejection, if you like, but I never had it the other way.
Mm.
I think one last thing I must ask, and it's probably more of a personal thing. Obviously, like, you spend your whole life training. How much of a burden and a real worry is kind of being injured? I'm just intrigued, because obviously you would imagine it's pretty a big dread that you train all your life like athletes do, and then there's that risk. Is that something that really plays into kind of the worries of playing, or is it just something that it's a matter of fact?
It's a matter of fact, to tell you the truth. But definitely in my head anyway, it's not something that I fear. Touch wood, it's something that I think happens to mostly everybody throughout their career. Some are luckier than others, and some are really unfortunate with their injuries. I think obviously the better you take care of your body, the less likely you are to get a muscle injury. But, you know, that can't stop a broken leg or a knee injury. So it's not something that we can control. I think, you know, it's something that unfortunately happens at the wrong time for many people, especially as a youngster. It can be really damaging, you know, it can really close many doors. So I think that just is almost down to fate, if you like.
I feel like I've really jinxed that now. I'm a bit of a funny person when it comes to touch some wood, please. That'd be great. But we're just going to sign off because you've literally covered everything really beautifully and more, actually.
Cool.
So we normally just end by saying thank you so much for joining us, and we've really, really enjoyed talking to you and learning a little bit more about the football industry.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. I enjoyed it too. So I wish you both well on your journey, and yeah, I'm sure we'll cross paths again.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. All right then.
Thank you so much to Steven for joining us this week, and we want to offer our biggest congratulations to you for reaching 2 years of sobriety. It's such a huge milestone in your journey, and we are so inspired by your continued dedication and strength in the face of adversity. We have linked some resources that can offer help and advice with any of the issues we spoke about in our chat today in the description for anyone who needs it. Thank you so much for listening, and until next week, keep your head above the clouds.